Well, it drives like it used to, maybe with a slightly different sound, because the new owner had to change the exhaust. Anyway, it's my car, and it's
the car with which I did my last lap of the Le Mans circuit.
I raced in England, I raced in Spain at the 12 Hours of San Sebastian, I raced in Belgium at the 24 Hours of Spa. I never found an atmosphere like that, a fantastic atmosphere.
In 1927, a strange car appeared on the Le Mans circuit, skimming the road and exceeding 140. The Tracta, that's its name, showcased a technique that no one had yet mastered: front-wheel drive.
You can't have it wiser than that. It's possible.
For years, its builder, Jean-Albert Grégoire, was the only one in the world to consistently drive with front-wheel drive, convinced from the start that his technique was the way of the future.
Chroming your pipes and axles is nothing at all.
It all starts with a story of friends. One with money, Pierre Fenel, son of a billionaire in oil; the other with degrees, Jean-Albert Grégoire, a polytechnic graduate and doctor of law, but also French champion of the 100 meters. Both are so passionate about car racing that they decide one day to race in their own car. Out of pure provocation, they build it with front-wheel drive and then discover that their car, the Tracta, has incredible road handling. On their way to the 24 Hours of Le Mans, they have an accident. Fenel is in a coma. Grégoire, injured, escapes from the clinic to race anyway. The next day, it's a dazed driver, trembling with fever, who crosses the finish line qualifying 7th. Front-wheel drive has just been born.
I built 5 race cars and raced for 4 consecutive years. I'll just give you the results. In 4 years, 1927, 28, 29, and 30. I started 9 cars, and I had the fantastic percentage of having 8 of them qualify in 4 years. It's an endurance record that has never been reached in the entire history of the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Across into the Tracta, short front-wheel drive did not work, as this system interfered with the steering of the wheels. The invention of Grégoire and Fenel is the joint that allows the wheels to steer smoothly.
It's an extremely simple joint. Instead of having an axis like this and an axis like that, like ordinary joints, there's an axis like this, an axis like that, and it remains symmetrical with respect to the plane of rotation. So you can watch it turns. Here, when I turn by an angle, it turns by exactly the same angle. In 1927, I set up this factory where we are today, where my cars are, and this happened 60 years ago.
The workshop in Asnières, about 20 workers with 2 foremen, the design office, 1 engineer, sometimes also a draftsman. With this tiny team, Jean-Albert Grégoire, partnered with another Polytechnic graduate, builds 200 cars of 8 different models in 5 years. He invents, he sells, he races himself in his cars, driven by the passion of the heroic times of the automobile that gave rise to hundreds of small manufacturers in the suburbs of Paris.
He is one of the last of the pioneer race. That is to say, in the past, when Mr. Grégoire created his factory and released his first Tracta vehicles, he was a man alone. He was surrounded by 4, 5, 6, 7 collaborators, but he took all the risks. His company, it was financial and personal risks. It was the obligation to handle management, administration, personnel, also to invent, to build, to take care of after-sales service. Today, that no longer exists today. A car is created by 300, 400, 500 engineers who are surrounded by separate departments that handle management, personnel, financial studies, sales, commercial, after-sales, etc. And that, unfortunately, will no longer exist.
1925, 1930, the Roaring Twenties unleashed their joy of living between two global crises. Fortunes suddenly arise only to falter a few years later. All boldness is allowed, especially that of surprising. Surprised by the rhythms, the lines, the exoticism. The automobile embodies this dream of luxury, modernism, and movement. It fascinates beautiful women who enjoy competing in elegance with the most sumptuous car bodies.
In my youth, you know, it was enough to be driven in the woods in a beautiful car, and then you could find a pretty woman on Avenue des Acacias. It was well known, even respectable women, because there were respectable women who walked in the woods with their dogs. And I made cars that appealed to women. The Tractas were very popular with women. They were very low, very long cars. Personally, I had very modest means. I only had a 20 horsepower Tracta Sport with a very long hood and a large rear trunk that captivated all the girls I met. I reached 140 per hour with that car, which was the speed of an 8-cylinder Bugatti. I was the king of the road. Only Bugattis could worry me.
The race remains the ultimate test that bestows prestige upon brands. It is the moment of glory for Bugatti, which sweeps all the prizes and is already recognized as a work of art. For it is indeed an artist who builds them, Ettore Bugatti, idol of Jean-Albert Grégoire, as well as all young sports enthusiasts, and endowed with an instinctive sense of mechanical truth.
When he said, this part is good and it didn't break. On the other hand, when a part bothered him, he looked at it more closely. He said, it is not good, it will break there. And we always noticed that it broke at the spot he had indicated.
At the auto show held at the Grand Palais, Jean-Albert Grégoire enters the world of manufacturers. An elegant world, often flamboyant, immersed in Parisian festivities.
Pleasure of love, you have pain, or we forget the head. Poem lasts a lifetime.
He meets André Citroën, who knows how to make himself talked about admirably. Among other greats, Grégoire rubs shoulders with Louis Delage, who will later inspire one of his novels, and Louis Renault, who has already left the small workshop of his beginnings.
Delage, Renault were people who really knew their cars, whereas Citroën would have been incapable of changing a valve spring. And you would say that about me too. Citroën made visionary cars. He saw mass production, the first in France.
Citroën is not the only one to build in series. Renault has built on the Ile-Séguin the most beautiful assembly line in Europe, where hundreds, then thousands of workers are active. Between the giants and the small manufacturers caught in the economic turmoil of the 1930s, the fight is unequal. The phase of industrialization begins with mass production prepared by battalions of engineers. Jean-Albert Grégoire refuses to be conscripted. From now on, he will be a maverick at the cost of inventiveness and a constant struggle.
Faced with the design offices of the major manufacturers, he becomes the man who disrupts.
He was approached by André Citroën, who asked him to be the chief, his technical director. It was very honorary for sure. However, Mr. Grégoire values independence above all. He is a man who would not have tolerated having someone above him. I think he preferred to have a difficult path filled with many obstacles, but to be his own boss, the boss he still is today.
If you multiply 25 by 44,
You deviate the 1600 by 44. So he continued to search with his engineers. It was necessary to find patents, draw, etc. He faced a lot of rejection from the automotive industry because he was considered an outsider. I think it disappointed him a lot because I believe he was right in the technical field. I think he was always right, way too early, but he was always right, and he was the outsider.
In 1933, the last Tracta leaves the Agnières factory. It costs much more than it sells for. From now on, the money will come from patents and prototypes. Jean-Albert Grégoire will sell his ideas. One of his first ideas, in 1934, was to substitute steel with a very new metal at the time, whose importance for the future he foresaw, aluminum.
I have never liked steel sheet metal, which is nevertheless the number one material in both vintage and especially current cars. I don't like its dirty appearance, its sharp edges that you have to handle with leather gloves. And when in the Tracta, I had a piece of malleable cast iron, that is to say, a kind of cast steel that I weighed in my hands. I would say to myself, if this piece were made of cast aluminum, I would like it more.
Engineer Grégoire had the idea, awarded in 1935 at the competition of the Society of Automotive Engineers, to replace the usual car chassis with a set of parts that formed the molded aluminum alloy frame using the sand casting process.
The machining of aluminum parts of a car is...
Why aluminum? Besides his attraction to this metal, Jean-Albert Grégoire has two reasons. Aluminum is light, which increases the car speed, and above all, Grégoire believes that a rigid chassis made of cast metal will neutralize the vibrations of cars, which the advent of balloon tires has made unbearable. French aluminum company Péchinet, excited by the idea, orders prototypes from him. Completely made of aluminum, the cast chassis is first tested on a German car with a Grégoire patent, the Adler, then on an elegant small car, the Milka compound built by Hotchkiss and presented at the 1937 show. Subsequently, all prototypes designed by Grégoire will be equipped with cast aluminum chassis. Jean-Albert Grégoire will always advocate for this technique, later adding a new argument, the resistance of the cast chassis in case of an accident. On the other side of the Rhine, war is being prepared. Jean-Albert Grégoire, who sees Hitler and Goering at the Berlin Auto Show, guesses why the Führer is so interested in automotive mechanics, because it will play a crucial role in the Second World War. The front-wheel drive technique appears ideal for off-road vehicles, and it is the triumph of the tractor joint. Out of patriotism, Grégoire sells it at a low price to the French, British, and American allies for their jeeps, but he cannot prevent the Germans and Soviets from copying it. In short, from 1940 to 1945, more than 1 million military vehicles used the Grégoire Fenil patent. In occupied France, the gasoline shortage stimulates inventors who seek other sources of propulsion. At the request of the CGE, Grégoire then designs an electric car, the CGE Tudor. It breaks the world record for distance without recharging, 258 kilometers, at an average of 43. But Jean-Albert Grégoire dreams of a car entirely made of aluminum.
The French aluminum asked me, do you want to make a popular car? That is to say, a car. The specifications were simple, a four-seater with a small engine capacity that reaches 100 kilometers per hour, consumes 4 liters per 100 kilometers, and is extremely quiet and economical to maintain. And so I started working in this factory with a small team of engineers. Each part had to be weighed to the nearest gram.
The future of automobile construction lies in lightweight cars. At the Bois de Boulogne, the prototype of the small French cars built by engineer Grégoire is presented. These elegant young women seem to have been waiting for just this means of transportation. 4 people fit comfortably, entirely built from light alloy. It weighs less than 500 kilograms, and its 4-horsepower engine allows a speed of 90 kilometers per hour with perfect road handling and consuming only 5 liters per 100 kilometers. Let us hope that this car, which will be mass-produced, will soon be made available to a public eager to rediscover the joys of tourism.
At the post-war exhibition, models that had been secretly developed for years are revealed, and there is a boom in small cars designed to satisfy the zest for life of average French people. Every major brand is eager to present its own. The French aluminum Grégoire, whose idea Péchinet offers for free, is initially rejected by engineering offices defending their own interests. Finally, it is Panhard that adopts the idea of the AFG in a derivative version that will be 400,000 units, the Dina. At that time, the street is the mirror of a quarrel between old and modern, as the new design of car bodies is gaining ground that of the aerodynamic line. On this point, Grégoire thought about it during the war. His idea, a body designed like that of an airplane, advised by an aerodynamicist, he progresses from model to a car whose drag coefficient, the air resistance, is 0.20 compared to 0.54 for the Citroën front-wheel drive. Thus is born the Hotchkiss Grégoire, whose drag coefficient remains unmatched by current cars.
Look at this old car. Isn't it beautiful? Yes. What do you think about it? For me, it's a Hotchkiss. Hotchkiss Grégoire. I might see an Austin. Oh no, Hotchkiss Grégoire. I know it delighted me in the 1950s, just after the war. It was one of the most beautiful cars. Yes, the 2 little cannons. The 2 cannons, that's Hotchkiss. Oh yeah, it's superb.
He is undoubtedly an artist. I think the most beautiful car is the Hotchkiss Grégoire, the 2-seater convertible that is now, I don't know, over 30 years old, even 40 years, I believe. If you took it out today, people would say it's an ultra-modern car. It could only have been designed first by a genius technician, but also by an artist.
Beauty, speed, 2 obsessions embodied almost simultaneously by 2 very different Grégoire, the Grégoire Sport and the Soccer.
The auto show opened its doors amid a curiosity that this time remains unsatisfied due to a lack of true novelty. The only revolution at the show is still just a display item for now, the Sotsema Grégoire with a turbine that develops 100 horsepower, but it is a unique prototype with no follow-up.
How fast did it go?
That should have worked at 200 kilometers per hour. It's a turbine on top of, with this CX, it's the most beautiful car I've made. I am outraged by the current lines of cars. This cut-off rear end is very bad from an aerodynamic point of view. And this front, I ask you, do you see the front of a car in front of an Airbus? But it's not possible.
It is indeed the same man who creates in 1970 this square car driving at 70 kilometers per hour. Even though Jean-Albert Grégoire quickly regrets not giving it more aerodynamics, the CGE Grégoire remains a slow car. It has other qualities that meet new needs.
It is indeed with Jean Grégoire that we made this car, and he did the work in such a way as to truly create a car designed to be electric by starting everything from scratch. And we thought that this period was well chosen. It was a time when people were becoming aware of the need for energy savings. Finally, our company realized that it was wasting a phenomenal amount of energy and that something needed to be done.
I noticed that if we wanted...
The energy shortage is one of the themes that comes up most frequently in the discussions of the Club of Three. The Club of Three, as it calls itself, is with Jean-Albert Grégoire, Jean Mattioli, President of the Economic and Social Council, whom Grégoire advised during the reconversion of the Northern Coalfield, and François Delage, General Director of the CGE. All three are convinced that oil, gas, and even uranium may be lacking in a few decades, and that it is urgent to conserve them and find alternative energies.
At the same time as oil and gas, we have squandered our wealth since the beginning of the 20th century. Completely. It was the fault of the automobile. It was my fault. I made cars faster and faster, consuming more and more gasoline. That's all.
24 Hours of Le Mans. In 1955, Levig's Mercedes explodes into the crowd. 75 dead on the spot, 150 seriously injured. Grégoire, who is commentating the race live for a radio, is faced with a horrific scene. A few years later, his son narrowly escapes death in a road accident. Grégoire becomes aware of the dangers of speed.
I saw the road mortality figures and it horrified me. I said to myself, I must set an example. I, the man of speed, must raise an alarm. So I wrote 4 major articles in Le Figaro titled Too Many Deaths on Our Roads.
Who caused the uproar? That is to say, all the manufacturers called me a renegade, a traitor. I was opposed by everyone except by the intelligent people who agreed with me and except by my own conscience, which dictated what I had to do.
I am writing the beginning of my last chapter, The Car of Tomorrow.
I was a writer on Saturdays and Sundays. Writing was my relaxation.
Through the plots of love, money, and power imagined by Grégoire the writer, the silhouettes of builders, engineers, financiers, and also women who lived like him through the adolescence of the automobile appear often cruelly etched. This era of which Grégoire, novelist or historian, is an extraordinary witness.
30 years of automobiles. It's really a book that I constantly have around me, which is a reference, which is at the same time, I must say one thing, it's a tremendous adventure. And if one likes adventure novels about solitary men who create without official support, without anything, by their own genius, by their own will, I find it to be a tremendous adventure, one of the most beautiful of the 20th century.
They call me the engineer. I don't know why. I am Engineer Grégoire. And maybe it's because they consider me a true engineer. I don't mind it at all, actually. I think it's nice to be the only one with this distinction in my country. If I were in England, the Queen would probably have knighted me like she knighted Sigonius, the father of the militia. But in France, they call me Engineer Grégoire. It's my title of glory. I am very happy